A sigh of relief. A 5-year-old boy feared to have had Ebola test negative for the virus. This as another state imposes strict rules for certain travelers. Good evening, everyone. I'm Maurice Dubois.
And I'm Christine Johnson. Within the last hour, Connecticut joined New York and New Jersey, ordering a 21-day quarantine for those deemed at risk.
Today, the CDC also issued new guidelines. However, it only recommends voluntary quarantines.
As for that 5-year-old boy, he cleared the first hurdle, but remains at Bellevue Hospital tonight. And that is where we find CBS 2's Tracee Carrasco.
Cell phone video from a neighbor shows the 5-year-old boy wrapped in protective gear being wheeled out of his Bronx apartment building Sunday night, brought to Bellevue Hospital by ambulance. The child returned to the U.S. Saturday night after visiting family in the Ebola-stricken country of Guinea. His mom called for help after he came down with a 103-degree fever. But by Monday night, the boy's preliminary test results came back negative. He will remain in isolation until further negative results come back.
Everything has been handled again according to protocol.
This quick response comes as the CDC announced new safety guidelines on Monday, which increased the level of protection by outlining 4 different levels of exposure: high risk, some risk, low but not zero, and no identified risk. They outline different public health actions that can be taken for each of those levels of exposure, ranking from voluntary home quarantine to self-monitoring. Late Monday night, Connecticut Governor Dan Malloy issued new guidelines for anyone returning to his state. It's the same that Governors Andrew Cuomo and Chris Christie imposed last week, a mandatory 21-day quarantine for anyone arriving in New York and New Jersey from West Africa. That's if they've treated or come in contact with Ebola patients, even if they are asymptomatic.
You could say I am being overcautious. I would rather be in this situation a little overcautious. And I think all New Yorkers feel the same way. You don't want to make a mistake with this.
No matter what you do, there will be critics, and you don't worry about that. You worry about doing what's right.
The governor's taking some heat for their policy.
If he knew anything about Ebola, he would know that asymptomatic people are not infectious.
Possibly their harshest critic, Nurse Casey Hickox, the first to be quarantined at a New Jersey hospital on Friday after returning from Sierra Leone. Hickox treated Ebola patients and called her isolation inhumane. On Monday, Hickox left the hospital in this black SUV, released from hospital quarantine after testing negative for the virus.
I think this is an extreme that is really unacceptable, and I feel like my basic human rights have been violated.
Now tonight, Bellevue Hospital said they have started to move patients from their ICU down the street to NYU Langone Medical Center to free up staff to fight Ebola and treat patients like Dr. Craig Smith, who is still in isolation here, undergoing antiviral treatments in serious but stable condition. We're live tonight outside of Bellevue Hospital on the east side. Tracee Carrasco, CBS 2 News.
All right, Tracee, thank you. The Army issued new procedures for soldiers returning from West African nations aiding in this Ebola fight. They must now be isolated for 21 days. The Army's chief of staff says the controlled monitoring is due to an abundance of caution to protect the health of the soldiers, their families, and their communities.